So good afternoon. So as the introduction says, my name is Paul Byrne. I'm the CEO of a voice security product called PBX Wall. I'm also a Mayo man, and I'm not sure if Paul done this on purpose, putting a Mayo man after a Donegal man. But I am desperate for tickets on Sunday, so Carl, I'm going to become your best friend. So to add some background, in the early years I was a telecoms engineer. I specialised in the installation and maintenance of telephone systems, PBX systems. Following that, I crossed over into the world of sales. And at the turn of the century, I co-founded a company called Telcom Limited, again, which specialised in the sales and maintenance of PBX systems. Paul has kindly invited me here today to talk about what we regard as the telecoms industry's dirty little secret. In fairness, I cannot claim to have coined this phrase. In fact, it was coined by Mr. John Kennedy from the well-known publication Silicon Republic. John has studied this problem pretty well, and he's wrote extensively about it over the years. So what is the telecoms industry's dirty little secret? Depending on where you are located in the world, it would be commonly referred to as toll fraud, PBX hacking, or in the world of the web, they call it phreaking and phishing. For the rest of this session, and from now on, I'm going to refer to the problem as toll fraud. At this stage of the presentation, I'd like to do something that not many other business owners would do, and that is that I want to admit that my business, Telcom Limited, became a victim of toll fraud. Within a few hours, one Friday morning, our phone bill increased by €7,007. Believe it or not, this figure could have been much greater if it wasn't for our engineer arriving to our office early to witness that there was a hacking event underway, and he quickly, with his skill sets, plugged the breach on the PBX. We were also fortunate that our PBX hadn't a whole lot of trunk lines connected to it. If there was much more trunk lines, the hack value would have been multiples of the €7,000. The investigation that followed confirmed that the hacker gained access to our PBX at 1 a.m. on a Friday morning and started making calls to international premium rate numbers that terminated in Cuba. The cost per connection to Cuba for an international premium rate call is €2.80. Our engineer witnessed the hack at 7 a.m., so the hacker was in our system for 6 hours. I also believe it was the hacker's motivation to suspend the hack attack before our staff arrived to the office and commence again when our office closed that evening. To be brutally honest, if the hack attack occurred on the Saturday morning when our office is closed for the weekend, the consequences would have been devastating for our business. So the outcome of this hacking incident were twofold. As the slide says, we was robbed. The hacker stole €7,000 from us. And for a small business, that was a pretty substantial hit. We hadn't budgeted for a hit like that in any of those months. But the experience pushed me along to develop a solution, which I'll allude to later. So that was my experience that led to what I would call my eureka moment. But when we look at the global figures of toll fraud, it pales into insignificance. So let's talk about the global cost. There's a forum called the Global Fraud Communication Association. It's made up of telecom carriers. It's a non-for-profit organization, and they report and measure the various fraudulent activities that go on throughout the world. The CFCA estimate that global toll fraud is costing almost $5 billion per annum. In the UK and Ireland, without concrete evidence, it is estimated that the figure is close to $1 billion per annum. The key thing to remember, the genius of this crime is its simplicity. Whether you accept it or not, the reality is that all businesses that utilize PBX systems are vulnerable to phone fraud. Whether you operate in the banking, legal, stockbrokers, manufacturing, education, or even charities, perpetrators of toll fraud neither have preference nor conscience. To give you a few examples and to talk about some indigenous Irish companies that will remain nameless, we have interviewed organisations such as a shopping centre that was frauded for €12,000, a business school, €42,000 over the Christmas break, a telecoms company, €64,000. The biggest one and the most publicised one would have been the Department of Social Welfare. Back in 2003, over one weekend, their large PBX deployment was defrauded for $300,000. I'd like to point out that with the expansion in that particular government department between 2003 and today, could you imagine what the phone bill would be today if the same hack occurred? And one of the most significant issues is that victims of toll fraud remain vulnerable. There are no guarantees that they will not be hacked next week, next month, or next year. So whether your carrier contacts you during the attack, or whether you open your phone bill at the end of the month, there's one thing's for sure, that if you've been hacked, you're going to get bill shock. Victims cannot believe or accept that they have to pay for the full amount of this fraud. But the harsh reality is they are fully liable. Following a phone shock, victims quickly resort to a state of expectation. So we're back to the cat. Cathal, you used him fairly well in the last one. He's back. Victims expect that somebody will be held accountable, that justice will be brought, and that they will achieve a favourable outcome. The situation quickly descends into the line carrier blaming the PBX maintainer, disowning any responsibilities for the problem, and the victim being left to hold the total loss. This becomes the classic head in the sand syndrome. So having failed to get any favourable outcome, the victim turns to the police force agencies, and they hope that the crime scene will identify those who perpetrated their system. Let's talk about the crime scene. Investigating an incident of toll fraud is almost an impossible task. The hackers are highly skilled. They're invisible. They don't leave any evidence. There are no fingerprints. And the people who investigate it can't even determine where the calls originated from. And for a hacker to become invisible, the easiest thing for them to do is turn off their caller ID. Along with poor regulation, cross-border restrictions, language barriers, lack of police cooperation and budget add to the frustrations encountered by law enforcers who attempt to uncover the perpetrators and seek prosecutions. To our knowledge, only 4 persons have ever been prosecuted. This was a gang from the Philippines that defrauded AT&T for $2 million. This attack brought the FBI down on them pretty heavy. The next emotion that a victim of toll fraud experiences is total frustration. This guy was so concerned, he nearly lost his eyes, never mind his job. I don't know him, by the way, either. All avenues of finding a solution when all avenues of finding a solution have been exhausted, nobody is held responsible or accountable. And the final phase emerges, that of realization, and that the phone bill is overdue and needs to be paid. So let's talk about the hacker's motivation. Why should a hacker want to commit a toll fraud? It's the situation that many individuals find themselves in. Do they want to choose a life of crime, or the temptation to make it to earn an easy buck? Hackers profit €1.80 for every call that's made to international premium numbers. Applying an auto dialer can generate multiple calls during a weekend, which greatly increases their rewards. Keep in mind that a hacker who perfects the art of toll fraud does not need a weapon, a balaclava, an alibi. They're normal Joes. They fit into society. People relate to them every day, but they don't know what they do. Compare this to a crook who decides to rob a post office. He goes in, he puts the lives of 3 or 4 individuals at risk. He gets out the door with 20,000 under his arm. You can be sure that the emergency response units respond aggressively. The police helicopters in the sky. Every effort is made to find this guy. Compare that to a PBX hacker. He can sit in his home, take 50,000 out of your, take 50,000 off you, and remain invisible. Sufficient evidence exists to state that the hackers are rarely based in the country that they commit the crime in. There's also sufficient evidence gathered by police forces around the world that states that organised crime gangs and terrorist groups are the big players in the world of toll fraud, as they see this as an easy means of gathering revenue to fund their activities. So let's move on to discover why PBXs are such a soft target. In my personal opinion, having worked in the world of PBX systems for 20 plus years, I believe the security parameters that revolve around a PBX system have never been taken seriously. For decades, the PBX was referred to as the fridge that was under the staircase, with all of the stationery boxes piled up around it. It was the grey box in the basement that was miles from civilization, which was generally covered in an inch of dirt and surrounded by cobwebs. Compare that to the luxurious surroundings of a server room, where the servers were given 5-star treatment, keypad access, raised floors, air conditioning, security, scheduled backups, a complete different environment, which I think backs up my original opinion that security and PBXs were never taken seriously. So the PBX and its vulnerabilities. During the late 80s, mid-90s, ISDN technology arrived, digital telephone lines. This revolutionized the PBX. Organizations were now capable of using features and functions that allowed mobility, features such as DISA, voicemail, direct dial numbers, call diverts, call forwards, mobility, but to name a few. They became the requirement, and it became the soft targets for hackers. While most people present may not understand or appreciate the technical details of these functions and features, all you need to appreciate is that these features offer the hacker a myriad of possibilities to gain access and commit their crime. It's also worth remembering that a PBX is a server. It may look like something different, but it is a server with many advanced open features. However, unlike a data server, it is not protected by firewalls and is vulnerable to hack attacks. So you might wonder, are there existing security solutions in the world to help combat this crime? And the reality is that there are. We've got rules-based systems that are dependent on human intervention, continual management. You must know in all cases of toll fraud the fraudulent number in advance, so it's entered as a rule. I would argue that that solution isn't pretty smart. There's alert-based solutions. If an unusual calling pattern, if call thresholds have been hit, a fraud alert goes off. That can be an SMS, it can be an email. If the person who receives that is in bed, is out on the town, is playing golf, has left her phone back in the locker, that alert is sitting there until it's responded to. Equally, that person may no longer work for the organization, and the alerting table has never been updated to replace that guy. So the alert is out there and there is no response. And during all of this wait time, your organization the phone bill is increasing by the minute. Time is money. The steps that typically happen at this stage is that if the alert is found, it has to be actioned against. There's a phone call generated to the PBX maintainer. There's an assumption that that maintainer will react immediately. If they don't, the breach continues. In the real world, the hack will continue long after the time that the alert was sent, and the associated costs will be borne by the victim. So some helpful tips that you can take away. There are many good practices, simple practices, that can be applied to a PBX. There are no guarantees that they will prevent the hacker gaining access, but one of the big tips is that anybody responsible in this area should contact their PBX maintainer and have a full audit carried out to determine the points of weakness within the PBX and to plug those breaches. However, the reality of the situation is that such measures will only reduce the chances of a falling victim. They will never guarantee protection or total security. If you wish to discuss with me later, feel free to call to our stand, and we will be more than happy to outline some more suggestions and a product that we think would be of help to you. So you've been to the stand, you know where we are, just inside the door. That's the end of my presentation. My contact details are there for anybody who would like to take them down and contact me. That's me. Thank you.